Good afternoon and welcome to today's digital dealer webinar. Today's webinar is sponsored by Reunion Marketing and is titled, How Does My Digital Strategy Stack Up to the Competition? Today's webinar presenter is Dave, founder and CEO of Reunion Marketing. This webinar will run approximately 1 hour with a question and answer session at the end. Please welcome Dave.
Hi, thanks for the introduction. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining the webinar today. Real quick background about me before we get going. Again, Dave Spannhake, the founder and CEO of Reunion Marketing. Actually been learning from Digital Dealer myself since Digital Dealer 8. I've been to all but one of the conferences, and fortunately, I've been fortunate enough to have been asked to speak at the last 6, and looking forward to doing so here next month for a 7th one, and then always enjoy these educational series. Before starting Reunion, I actually spent 10 years working for a 33-store group in North Carolina. I was the marketing director leading a team of 25. And during the last 3 years that we were there, we increased our lead volume and our traffic to our websites by 400%, all while over that 3-year period increasing the revenue for the 33 stores by 75%. So saw some major increases. Following that, 4 of the folks on that team, we joined together along with a brilliant gentleman from Ernst & Young and formed Reunion Marketing, bootstrapped it from the beginning, and took out my retirement, did that crazy thing, and the team gathered up the funds that we had and bootstrapped it, and have been fortunate in just 3 years to have turned into a nearly 50-person team working with 200 stores across the country and looking at a lot of data. So that gets me really excited. And so some of the things that created a lot of those successes are things that we're going to be talking about today. Looking at the data, looking at what the competition is doing, trying to better understand how the data can teach us how we can be more successful. So to get started, I think one of the best ways to start looking at, hey, what is going on in the industry? How do I compare to others? Is just taking a look at the industry landscape as it is today. So these are numbers from NADA. This is a pretty major change from last year. You look at, this is the advertising expenditures by the different types of media. Internet now, for the first time, above 50% of total spend, 55%. You can see some decreases, of course, in newspaper, which you can guess, and radio and TV. And if you look just 1 year ago in 2016, the last time this was sent out, that was 33%. So going from 33% to 55% is a pretty major shift in how we're spending our money, which is great to see, because we're being more efficient than ever. Although lumping internet into one bucket is lumping a lot of different channels with a lot of different purposes together. So this is something that we want to be a little bit purposeful about. We'll talk about that in a second. But then also look at the average dealership spending $587,000 in 2016 for advertising. It's not much different this year to $579,000 on average. Of course, this varies dramatically by type of dealership. And when you look at it on average, we're still spending $629 for every vehicle we're selling. So we're not being nearly as efficient as we want to be. Frankly, this is more than double what we would recommend a dealership spend. That while working at that 33-store group, saw those increases, spending about $215 for every car sold. You can dramatically increase your budgets or decrease your budgets and still be that much more efficient by spending wisely. And so we're going to look at how the data can kind of teach us where to spend money wisely today. So that's staying consistent. We're spending that $629. It's been above $600 for years and how much we're spending per car. But consumers are banking on the efficiencies that they're able to create from the internet, because they are more educated than ever. They come in knowing what they want, how much they think they should spend, all those different kind of pieces. So you look at gross margin as a percentage of selling price. Again, these are NADA stats from 2010, near 4.5%, down to last year, 2.5%. So consumers are becoming more savvy. We're seeing, prices continue to decrease, and we're not making as much on each car as we can. So again, when we look at being more efficient, you say $629. If you can be more efficient, get more out of your marketing spend, and drop that spend, that's a great way to increase your gross margin, because that advertising spend is right around 8% of that gross margin on average. So that's a lot of money that's being maybe misused, and let's talk about how we can do that. And so one of the first things people ask is, well, what should I how should I build my budget? What percent should I put into traditional media, and what percent should I put into digital media? We're still kind of lumping into these buckets, and even that NADA study showed internet, digital as one section and different sections. But a challenge I have for everyone here today is maybe think differently about that, because what's the purpose? What's the purpose of each of the marketing channels that we're spending money on, and are we succeeding in going after that purpose? So we look at things as there's stimulus channels and there's intent channels. Stimulus channels are those channels where people are not necessarily in the market, but we're trying to get them into the market. We're trying to get them excited about maybe getting into a new vehicle or used vehicle. Things like targeting people on Facebook and programmatic channels and going after specific audiences, or similar stimulus goals would be things like TV and radio, where you're blanketing the market, maybe not with as much efficiency as you have with some of those other channels, where TV, maybe you're doing network buy in 7 counties, but you're only selling your cars in 1 county, so you can get more efficient by better targeting your audience. And then there's intent channels, where there are people who are going into Google, for instance, and typing in, I'm looking to buy a used Ford F-150, in the city that I'm in, and they're raising their hand and saying, I'm looking to buy right now. Or they're on Car Gurus or Auto Trader or one of those third-party sites, and they're browsing and shopping for cars. I mean, these are people who are much more likely to be in market. They have an intent to buy. So how efficient are we being in those channels? And understanding that each of these different channels has a different purpose. And so, you can't necessarily correlate all those together, but how efficient are we in each of those different purposes? What we do know is that people are going on average during their 16, 17 hours of research, and we've all seen all the studies, going to 24 different touch points, being influenced by several different channels along their journey to, their decision to buy. 19 of those are digital. So they're finding a lot of their information. They're being influenced across a lot of different digital channels. And what we want to do is we want to have as much influence over them as we can. The more often that we get people, for instance, to our website where we're the sole influencer, where maybe it's on a third-party site where your 5, 6, 7 competitors are also on there, different makes. The more traffic we drive to our websites, the more successful we're going to be, because we don't have the same level of competition. We're the sole influencers. And so that's why most of the time when you look at your CRM data and you look at conversion data, you see your closing rate for leads on your website is significantly higher than some of the third-party sites. So how do we get more of that traffic? And so that's a question that we like to pose on the regular is, where is the biggest opportunity for us to increase our sales, increase our market share, create more influence than our competitors, and get more people considering us and giving us the leads or the traffic on the lot or the cracks of the bat. Is the question, do we need more traffic? Are we on the intent side of that marketing philosophy? Are we dominating those different channels? Are we, showing up in as many of those 19 digital touch points that happen on the journey as we can? Or maybe we do have a lot of influence there. We're very visible, but it's just not efficient. The third-party sites are not getting the clicks. We're not getting the leads. Our website traffic is not converting. People aren't doing what we want them to do. So where's the biggest opportunity, and how do you prioritize your efforts to increase really the net total shoppers? Clicks don't sell cars, but clicks represent people. How do we get more of those people to do the things that we want them to do, especially when they're raising their hands and saying that they want to buy? So first thing that I'd recommend is Google Analytics. I'd say now, we offer a free digital analysis, and so we're fortunate to look at a lot of data from a lot of different dealerships, and most dealerships nowadays have Google Analytics installed. 5 years ago, it was less than half of the dealers across the country. I'd say it's closer to 90% or higher now. But what a lot of dealerships don't have yet installed are goals. Again, so we said before, clicks don't sell cars. That's something that I've been hearing, for most of my career, especially the 10 years spent at that dealership group. And that's true. Clicks don't sell cars, but clicks do, again, represent real people. So are those real people doing the things on the website that are going to create more shopping opportunities for us at the dealership? Are they going to be submitting leads or chatting or engaging or looking at vehicles, looking at inventory, and engaging in a way that's going to get them to the dealership and to the lot and reach out to us? So things that, I'd recommend measuring, one, the cars are the stars. That's one of the things that we want people to do on a website is to look at the inventory and do that shopping. How often or how efficient are we in getting people to look at the VDPs, the vehicle detail pages? How many people are going and looking through the photo carousels and doing those kind of things that show I am shopping on your website and I'm being influenced. Of course, the macro conversions we want to measure, how many people are making phone calls on the site and how many people are, submitting trade appraisal leads and submitting leads through form submissions on the website or, any of the purposes, how many people are going and scheduling service and doing the things on the parts and service side that we want them to do. You can set up all these different things in your Google Analytics. And if you aren't doing this, this is the first thing I would do after this webinar is get this installed. It really takes about maybe hour and a half or so. It's not a very long process to do. And I strongly encourage you to do this because then you have a better understanding of what the people on your website are doing and how successful you are in getting them to do those things. And there's a whole lot of data in Google Analytics. A lot of people will maybe look at that first, the first dashboard right on the, the login for Google Analytics and just seeing how many sessions are happening and how many users are coming and bounce rate and time on site, of which those things can be heavily manipulated. But there's a lot you can do. You can integrate Search Console data and you can see all the queries that are driving the traffic to your website, both from organic and AdWords, which landing pages have the highest conversion rate, which the pages on your website that people are going to that are converting into the actions we want them to do. What hours of the day are they converting the most? Which pages are the people leaving and why are they leaving those pages? And how do we get them to, take that next step to do the things we wanted to do? Which devices are working? Are you performing well on mobile devices or, excuse me, or on desktop? Is that converting the same way? There's so much going on in here that you can go in and find. You can't leverage this data the same way if you don't have those goals set up and you're measuring how successful you are in getting people to do the things that you want them to do on your website. So mapping that out is critical. And so that caveat aside, Google Analytics set up those goals, have those integrations with Search Console and AdWords, and you get all that information flowing in so you can see that. Let's start then with increasing traffic and how successful are we on the intent side when people are raising their hand and getting people to come to our website over our competition, and who is the competition there? So one of the helpful things for us is that we have a pretty good understanding of what and how people are shopping today for on Google. They go into Google, basically they're typing, hey, I want to buy what you have at your store to sell me. We want to be found where those searches are happening. That data exists to us. So when you integrate so make sure you have your Google Search Console set up, integrate that with your GA, or you can use it directly in Search Console, and you can look at every single query organically, or I guess it's really about 67% of the queries that are happening because privacy doesn't give all of them like it used to about 7 or 8 years ago. But you can see enough statistically relevant query volume to know these are the types of searches that are happening that you're showing up for, where you're showing up for it, how successful are you in getting those clicks to your site, what position, again, and all the impressions that you're showing up for. So there's a lot of data here to help you prioritize and see this is what people are searching for that you're showing up for, that you have an opportunity to show up for. And that same data exists in even more of it so in Google AdWords, where you can get those same things, of course, with AdWords, besides just the clicks, the impressions, the click-through rate, and the average position. There's also a ton of conversion data that comes with that too, where you can see all these different search terms that are happening, specific search terms that are happening in your market. Take a look at these too, by the way, where that first search term has 3 words and the second one 2 words, and then 5 words and 2. And so just keep that in mind here for a couple of slides from now, one that to build upon that. But we know the impression volume and what exact searches, what the exact consumers are looking for on our websites to build a plan so that what we create on the website experience is going to be built to match the expectations of those intent searches. People are telling us what they want. Does the experience on the website match that? And with AdWords data especially, you can look at that conversion to see if we are in fact being successful in getting them to do the things we want them to do on our website. A real simple equation that we look at when we're prioritizing SEO, SEM efforts to make sure that we are trying to create a dominant position over the competition. Is what's the search volume, what's the winnability, the chance of actually showing up in those top positions in the organic side and in the paid side, and multiply that by conversion, because you can show up for some stat pad or kind of searches that don't really create the conversion for you. As a for instance, there's a lot of companies out there that build comparison pages where you're comparing two different models. If you actually look at where you're showing up for those things, and honestly, we fell into that trap too, because it was increasing organic years ago. It was increasing organic tremendously, organic traffic coming in. But if you look at it, maybe you're in North Carolina as a dealership, and all that organic traffic's coming from Washington or California or Texas, and it's not real traffic. It wasn't turning into conversions, but there was high search volume. There's a lot of people searching, but it didn't match the intent, and it wasn't the right audience. So in your market, where you're creating those conversions, are you prioritizing your efforts to get better positioning in a more dominant position over the competition? And when you do that based on this kind of formula, then you can start looking at net increases in real shoppers, and that helps you dramatically increase the real traffic to your website to give you those cracks in the bat. So again, search volume times winnability times conversion equals success for you in your store. And so we know all this information about what they're looking for. We know how to prioritize those efforts, because we're talking about oftentimes in the tens or hundreds of thousands of impressions that we're looking at to be able to compile that data. And that's all available to you, from the tools that Google gives. So we know what people are searching for. Do we have content on our website that matches the expectations of what those searches are? So content marketing, real big buzzword 2 or 3 years ago. Everyone was talking about content marketing. It's not just an old buzzword, though. It is an important part of your strategy to make sure that on your website you have specific content that matches those expectations. If someone is looking for, a new Volkswagen Passat in your market, you want to make sure you have a page built specifically about that, why the Passat is a valuable vehicle, have the inventory on that page. Are people searching for leases heavily in your market? Do you have content that supplies that? Do you have different pages for your Core Series used cars? All of your different service offerings, do you have that content there? Because if you don't, your chances of showing up over the competition on the search engine result pages are minimal, because Google is going to reward the websites that have the authority and the content that matches the expectation of those searches. That's where you're going to show up. So this needs to be a part of your plan if you want to increase that traffic for especially these low funnel hand raisers saying, I want this specific thing that you have as a service offering or a product or a vehicle, and make sure that you're satisfying the intent of that search. And so what does that look like? How do you show up? How do you show up in different right to win SERPs? Right to win is a coined phrase from a good friend of mine, Denise Chatty, who heads up the operations now at Contact at Once. Worked with her as a consultant back in her lot links days. We're very, very, very smart woman, and a mentor to me really in my career. She likes to use this word right to win, because these are the searches that when you supply the content as the local business, after many Google algorithm changes that have created an environment where they want local businesses to show up, if you supply that content and you build and you do the technical SEO elements the right way, you have a great opportunity to show up, and definitely page one, but a great opportunity to show up, in some of those top positions for things like 2018 Audi Q3 for sale, Paramus. Paramus is a city in New Jersey, and this dealership, buying that top position on the paid side. And then because they have pages built specifically around the new Audi Q3, they have a models page around the Audi Q3 that's a VDP is the third one. They have the first three positions organically because their content is going to satisfy those searches. And you can see those pages are built really exactly around what that search says. The search 2018 Audi Q3 for sale Paramus, and you look at the meta title here at the top, new 2018 Audi Q3 SUV for sale Paramus. Again, you're making sure that the content of that page and the elements of that page, the technical side, match that search. You got a great chance of showing up for that search because you're satisfying what it is people are looking for. But every search engine result page looks a little different based on things, even when they're a similar kind of search. So here's a store in Madison, Wisconsin, that has a 2018 and Nissan Altima Madison, Wisconsin search that happens. This one has a map. The last one didn't have a map. So you want to make sure, again, that you have, your Google My Business information well fleshed out, well built out, and have all those ducks in a row. So you can see here organically, again, because they have a specific page built around that car. They have a lot of great information on GMB, that they have that first spot on the map result. Then they also have, 2 more vehicle detail pages too, just because this is a dealership that has all this content that satisfies this search. So how do you show up in these kind of searches? I mean, again, different type of search here. This is a Honda dealer near me. If you haven't heard, near me is increased exponentially in the past 4 or 5 years. It's starting to plateau at this point in terms of search volume, but people like to search for things like near me, or dealership that's still open near me, and those kind of things. So again, understanding how people are searching is so valuable, but this is an area where your Google My Business page is so important. This is one of the top searches that happens across the board. How are you showing up for these? And every single position you can increase here is that many more searches that are coming to your website with people who are raising their hand saying, I am in need of your services. But not all SERPs are created equal. It's one of the things that we say around Reunion, and that's because there's searches like Ford F-150, where you may want to buy this as a paid ad using audiences within Google that have a higher propensity to buy, lower impression share, those kind of things. But organically, you're not going to show up for this kind of search in a lot of cases, because you're competing with, if you look here organically, Ford.com and Wikipedia and Car and Driver. And so Google, trying to understand how to match the intent of the search with the page that's going to best satisfy that intent. People who are typing Ford F-150 are also really just trying to figure out what is a Ford F-150, what are the features, not nearly as low funnel, not nearly as intent focused in their search as some of those other examples where there's for sale, there's a geography, there's lease, price, MPGs, like things like that, where you're showing it just by the nature of your search that you're closer to being in market than others. So again, not all SERPs are created equal, and these are the kind of ones that are a little bit broader. But that being said, even some higher funnel searches where maybe they don't have the right car, cars for sale, Upper Saddle River, New Jersey, this is another dealership within that group over in New York City, has so much relevant content on their website built up that even for things, cars for sale in that geo, are showing up 2 spots on that in the top organics position, and you can see a couple of their stores showing up on the map as well because of how relevant Google sees them, because of the content they're supplying across the board. So you can show up for some of those broader searches. And so that kind of brings us to the point where we know what they're searching for. We're building content that matches those expectations. When you consider that search volume and winnability and conversion formula, it's important to track and see how you are showing up and how are you showing up compared to the competition in these different searches. A lot of people say keyword tracking is dead or SEO is dead. The SEO is dead one is it always kind of drives me crazy, because if you look at the traffic coming to your website, organic traffic is always the top traffic driver. It's where most of the clicks are happening. And so when you know that things are happening in volume across your market, track those keywords that you're showing up for. This is a tool that Moz has. It's a tool that we love to use, and you can put in your 3 biggest competitors and see, here's the keywords that are getting a lot of search volume in the area. Here's what the competition is doing and how they're showing up. And so you can compare yourself to that competition. One of the things that we've recognized by beginning to do this is that a lot of dealerships who are not creating an environment where they have this content to satisfy the search, they're not the real competition. But who is the real competition? And this is where I did a search in a market that we actually don't have any partners in, but a great example. I did a search for the used Ford F-150 in Dallas, Texas, and here's the real competition on the search engine result pages. Here's who we're really going up against. It's not necessarily other dealerships, because a lot of dealerships aren't doing this the right way yet. It's car gurus who, I can just imagine people shaking their head yes, because they see them show up in so many searches right now in the market. One of the reasons why they didn't spend a lot of money on Super Bowl ads and all these different kinds of things to generate business. They put all their money into investing in SEO and SEM to create a dominant position on these things, and that's why they're the number one most trafficked third-party page out there. And TrueCar is the next one, Carfax, AutoTrader, Cars.com, AutoList. These are the ones that the companies that are actually cannibalizing a lot of these third-party listings. And I'd recommend really being on some of these too, because these are websites that have in-market shoppers. Don't throw all your marketing budget towards them and buying every bell and whistle, because there's a lot of shiny objects out there, of course. But these are sites that are very good at showing up in these searches. This is who we are competing against, and this is who we should be measuring ourselves against to make sure that we are increasing our visibility and working to earn those top positions for different searches like this above these third-party sites where, again, our website is a chance for us to be that sole influencer. These are the sites that have the competition. Good to be on, but we'd much prefer them coming to our site, right? And then on the paid search side too, again, we're SEO, SEM, both start with SE, search engine. It's the same exact kind of audience we're going after. People who are in market with the intent to buy based on the types of searches that they're doing. So we want to get as many clicks from these kind of ads as we can too. We want a high click-through rate on our paid search ads. It's a big factor in quality score, which we'll talk about in a second. But again, the more clicks for the types of people who are saying, hey, I'm looking to buy a new 2018 Enclave for sale right now. Are our ads sticking out? Are we creating a click-through rate that's high enough? And frankly, as an industry, again, when we're talking about how do I stack up to my competition, the average dealership across the industry in a WordStream study is 4% click-through rate, which I think is very, very low. Some of the more specific types of ads, for leases specifically, you can be up in the 35-40% range when you build out your ads in a way that do this. And frankly, if you're not seeing at least triple that 4%, then start questioning and wondering, am I creating ads that are standing out and driving those clicks for these people who are raising their hand and wanting to buy? So some examples here. Have multiple headlines, get your phone number in your ads, take up as much real estate as you can, have those long descriptions, get your address in there and your hours, these price extensions, call extensions, structure snippets, site links, all sorts of different things. Don't do things like this. Some bad examples here. Again, we're having a lot of fun on the search engine result page examples, but they're so valuable. Here's an area, I'm not trying to poke at any specific dealership really, but the top left here, Joe Johnson Chevrolet, you can see their description: view our inventory online or visit us in store for a test drive. And you go down to that fourth one, Dave Kellogg Chevrolet, view our entire inventory online or visit us in store for a test drive. Does that look familiar? See how there's no phone number on there for three of those ones in that area, or the ones below, which are the bottom two, the new Chevy inventory, view new Chevy inventory. Look at those two that look exactly the same for the whole headline and that description. Again, there's a lot of waste that goes out here too, where we're buying ads, but we're not getting our phone number in there or any of those extensions, or not getting our hours and directions. How do yours look? And so what I'd recommend to all of you guys, there's a website that I really like called isearchfrom.com, where your search results are not going to be skewed by you being in the dealership, and you don't want to skew those results anyway. So you can see objectively in the market, isearchfrom.com, where exactly you show up for these different things, kind of incognito, on mobile devices, on desktops. And so do some of these searches and see how your ads show up. How do you show up for these different things? Example here on the right, another one just to poke fun at, 2018 Lexus for sale in Kansas City. And it's funny, there's no Lexus dealership even buying this ad. You got Car Gurus, again, the competition, where we want to drive people to our website, and then a Ford store and a Mercedes store for that, just because no Lexus store in that market is maybe taking advantage of that kind of thing. So that's something that, is very low converting for a Ford store for that specific of a search for a Lexus, really a brand new Lexus, and you're talking about a Ford store doing that. That's most likely just wasted money, honestly, but things not to do, right? And a pretty cool announcement that came out here just a couple months ago. Google's always changing, and responsive search ads are out now. And so what that is, it gives us a chance to be even more dominant in our Google Ads visibility and how much space we're taking up in real estate on the search results. Because now You can have 3 headlines show up. You can have 2 90-character descriptions. Right now, it's the ones that we were looking at were 80-character descriptions, and you can see here in that Look at Ford example on the right just how much more text is showing up there, and how that compares to the next dealership down in that competition. And you can go in and put 15 headlines, 4 descriptions, and Google's algorithms are actually, if you're creating the content that matches the expectations of the search, and you're doing all the things right in terms of having your ad copy and having the way you build out your campaigns really match that intent, you can have literally 43,680 combinations of different types of searches that go out there, and it's being optimized around what's getting you the highest click-through rate and the best conversion on your site. So huge opportunity. And so if you go back here and look at, again, those expanded text ads where you had the 2 headlines, the 80-character descriptions, if you're not even here right now and you do some searches and you see that your ads look more like this, it's time to move on and find someone who's going to be more cutting edge and getting you this kind of opportunity where you're going to have a much higher click-through rate, way more traffic to your site, way more leads, and way more sales, right? And so when that happens, click-through rate's a big part of quality score, and this is why this is so important, is quality score and the amount you bid is basically going to give you your position. So if you have low quality score, if your click-through rate is low, if the relevance of the keyword to its ad group, or the ad text relevance, the landing page quality, the experience on there, your historical performance, if these things are not working in your favor, and all of this information, quality score for every keyword, you can find in the back end of AdWords. So if you don't know this, ask your paid search provider to share this information with you. A lot of dealerships live in that 4 to 6 range, where it's 4 to 6 out of 10. But you can see that maybe if you're paying $2 a click and you have a 5 out of 10 quality score here in this chart, how this works out, if you were to move that to 10 with much more relevant copy, you're paying half as much, $1. So you want to really be in that 8, 9, and 10 range, because you're paying pennies compared to when you're not built out in a way that's going to create that higher click-through rate and that better converting, a better built architecture on your site. And so with that, wanted to move to data, something that is so insightful to see what it is consumers are looking for and how you can start comparing yourself with how the competition is showing up for these different things. What is it that people are searching for, and how is their behavior changing? Because voice search is something that's certainly coming into the picture, but what's really happening with voice search, I think, is important. We looked at some of the search queries that were happening in volume earlier in the presentation, and what this is showing here is the number of words in a search for taking 10 million different queries that were out there. How many searches had 1 word in it, or 2 words, or 3 words, 4 words, 5 words? If you look at the percentage breakdown on that, this is, again, the study we did with dealerships across the country with 10 million queries, 95% plus of all the searches that happened had 5 words or less. So, long tail search is happening. There were 30 out of 10 million searches where we had impressions for 14 words, but it's not quite happening for these in-market intent searches the same way that maybe is being discussed when you look at the hard numbers and the actual data. And this was something that was surprising to us because it's such a buzz right now. When you look at all this information, all this data, you can start seeing the types of words that are used in almost every single kind of search: the for sales, the near me's, the geos, lease, price, dealership, the year. You can really prioritize your efforts, because if you go after the high volume searches that are happening in your market with a greater priority, you're going to show up for a lot of long tail too. Long tail is still important to show up for. It just isn't happening at the same rate. So there's a company called Distilled, outside of the auto industry, but a very insightful SEO company, talking about, well, what is it that people are searching for in voice search? Well, 50% of the people are using voice search for control action. So it's like, hey, phone, remind me to do this thing, or hey, set a reminder for an appointment I have at 3:30 Eastern, or you play this song, or like just even 20%, what's the weather like today, or how long is this commute going to take me, or even personal searches on your different devices. Listen to this. I want to listen to that podcast that they're listening to, or hey, check read me off the top headlines or those kind of things. So really 20 to 25% of the voice searches that are happening are actual real searches. And a lot of those are just informational questions that people, how tall is Michael Jordan? What team did he play for? Those kind of searches. So a lot of these 16, 17 hours of research are still happening in similar ways. And so that's why, understanding how voice search, where it is right now, it is going to keep changing and evolving, and looking at the data is very valuable, but what is actually happening right now is so important. So finishing off on this traffic side, I'm not going to go through all these different pieces. I could talk for hours about it. Don't forget the basics. Make sure that your SEO company and strategy, as you know what the consumers are searching for and where you want to beat the competition is based on their actual behaviors. Make sure you're doing these things. Your meta tags, your content, your link building, your page speed, all these different kind of things are considerations and being done, at the best level of technical SEO excellence. And so we'll finish off the traffic side here with just consider this. All the stuff we talked about, we know, as an example, 2,000 in-market searches are happening for a dealer brand near me, on the dealership near me. 2,000 searches happening maybe in this market, and we're in position 3. So we're getting 10% click-through rate. Well, if we were in position 1, maybe it's 35% click-through rate, 25% more clicks if we were in that first position. That means that 2,000 people prioritize our efforts based on what's actually happening. 500 extra people on your website where you are the one having that sole influence opportunity to work to get them to do what you want them to do. Are you prioritizing your strategies to get these kind of increases in your traffic based on real numbers? And again, said it already, clicks are just clicks if the user's not shopping. So do we have a plan? And we know how to get people to our website. We know how to prioritize. We know what they're searching for. Are they doing what we want them to on our website with those goals and conversions? So we'll start off, with the homepage. Homepage almost always gets the most page views. Really, I guess SRPs, the search result pages, get more total page views when you look at all of the different URL strings and filters, but the homepage gets singularly the most page views on the website. But look at this. We spend so much time making our homepage look nice and pretty and salesy, and they're spending 23 seconds for this dealership on that homepage. Fortunately, they're not bouncing or exiting. They're doing the things we want them to do, but that's because the homepage is a launching point for getting them as efficiently as we can where we want them to go. So let me show you a quick example. I'm going to go off the PowerPoint for a quick second and show you this is what people do on a homepage. All right, this is HotJar. This is a tool you can actually use for free for 3 different pages on your site. This person wants to go look at used inventory, and so they spent all of 8 seconds to do that, right? Here's another example. Again, HotJar is the tool here. It's a neat one. It's fun to just watch how consumers are behaving in your site. You can find a lot of clunky information that kind of matches your data. Again, right to the SRPs very quickly. This is how users are behaving on home pages. They don't want to sit around and wait for 18 banners to show up. They want to get to the inventory as quickly as they can, right? So 3 great examples there. Let's go back to the presentation from current slide. Again, HotJar is just a neat tool. I can spend hours watching that stuff. It's the geek in me, but it's fun to just watch how consumers are behaving because you learn so much about making a better experience. And so what are they not doing? They're not sitting around and waiting on homepage banners. We did a study across our clients recently where we found that of all the clicks that are happening on the site, on the homepage, 80% of those clicks are going to the navigation or the inventory search widget. Of all the clicks that are happening, the homepage banners had a mere 5.99% of those. The first banner was making up half of that 5.99%. And frankly, by the time you get to that third position, you're only looking at 0.86% of all the homepage clicks. When you're creating that 10th or 11th or 12th different special on your homepage, you're just wasting time. And so that ends up taking a lot of priority for a lot of different stores across the country where we're spending all this time doing that, as opposed to instead, let's make it as easy as we can to get people from our homepage to pages where they're shopping inventory and being influenced and generating leads for us or getting them to the store as quickly as we can. Let's reprioritize our efforts where we want people to do the things we want them to do. So how efficient are we in making that happen? And so again, when we're talking about comparing how we stack up to our competition, we're also needing to understand how do we fit in. What is the competition doesn't necessarily just mean you're in market area. If you're trying to get better, how do you stack up across all dealerships across the country? And this is one of my favorite things to do is look at the results for dealerships all over the place and see who's doing things the best and who's doing things the worst, and why is that happening, and what does the data teach us about how to create opportunities where more people are doing the things that we want, and why are they doing it? So this is the last 100 dealerships who entered our we call our TVC process, our traffic versus conversion process, and basically from the homepage, what percentage of the clicks that were happening on the homepage were getting them to search result pages. And isn't it crazy just how varied the results are on this? So if you look at this, you have some dealerships that less than 20% of the clicks that are happening on the homepage are going to inventory pages, and when most of the leads that are happening are when people are looking at your inventory, we know that's a bad thing. I mean, do we know what our click-through rate is from our homepage to our SOPs? I mean, you can tell the dealerships that are above 60% in terms of efficiency and getting them to look at inventory, they are the ones generating the most leads. They have the highest conversion rate on their website because we're getting people more quickly to where we want them to go. Every single page that we're waiting for, or taking them along this journey that's not a purpose page, it's not a page that's generating the leads and the shopping behaviors that we're looking for, means a percentage of those people are going to leave. At every page, there's an exit rate. Blogs are going to always have a high one. Like in this example, blogs are great ways to build relevance to your site and, support some of your purpose page as far as complementary content and things like that in your SEO strategy. A lot of those kind of pages have high exit rates, but we want to reduce the exit rates by making our website as efficient as it can be and getting people to where it is we want them to go. So some easy wins for you. Is there an inventory search widget installed on the homepage? Again, this make it easy for consumers. Also, try to keep it so you don't have 8 different options, but also don't just send people to all inventory pages. If they want new inventory, send them to new. If they want used, send them to used. How clean and easy is the navigation? Do you have 800 pages that people are just confused and don't know where to go? Or is it simple and clean and efficient in getting people to the primary pages on your website that are outlined as part of your plan? What pages convert the best? What pages create the best experience for that customer? Make it simple. The buttons leading to SRPs and schedule service, the purpose pages of the site. We want people to go to new inventory, used inventory, schedule service, maybe specials if that page is working for you. A lot of CMSs and our dealership websites have specials pages that actually work against you when you look at the data, because it's not easy to get back into the shopping and finding the vehicle that you want. The data speaks volumes to that. But do you have all these buttons make it easy to get them where you want them to go, where most of the leads are happening, most of the conversions are happening? How many pop-ups are installed? Is it easy to find the phone number for the dealership and the directions at all times, across the site? And then play as a user. This is a big recommendation I have. I mean, go home to, your girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, best friends, and ask them, hey, will you mind taking a look at the website and shop a car for me? Or, have your new car manager just have the homepage be the new car inventory, and your used car manager have their homepage be the used car inventory, and just always be looking at that stuff. Just keep playing and use all devices, not just the desktop with your phone, because most of the sales leads are coming from the search result pages of BDP. 61% of all the email leads happen there. It's even higher when you're more efficient in getting them to those pages, because that's where your cars are. That's where they're making their decisions. 20% of the phone calls happen there. And so since we know that 2/3 of the phone calls coming in, when you look at things like call source and who's calling in those kind of channels, are service related. This is almost all your phone calls are happening when they're looking at inventory. So make it easy to get there. And let's look at some easy wins that are happening on your SRPs and BDPs too. Again, this is where we're getting the leads. This is where we're getting people to, interact with us in a way that's going to create a better experience for them to match the expectations of what their experience, what they wanted their experience to look like. So they're on our website because they are searching for a car. They're not just a click, they're a user with an intent. And when we build that strategy around that intent, then let's make it easy for them to do the things that they want to do. They want to buy a car, so let's make sure that that's happening with the data. How easy is it to click through to a BDP on your search result pages? Your search filters, are they prioritized? Do they make sense? You can look in your actual data at the different URLs that are happening on your search result pages and see which search filters are being used the most? Are you creating an environment on your search result pages where you're actually building around consumer behavior and what's happening? Is that prioritized around the actual way people are searching your site? The easier you make the site for consumers, the more they're going to interact with you, and the more leads are going to happen, and the more traffic's going to show up at your showroom. Do you have mobile click-to-calls in every vehicle? And on desktops, do you have the phone number next to every vehicle? Make it easy. But don't overdo form submissions. You know, I see a lot of sites that have 7 or 8 or 9 different things happening. It looks like a carnival, and I don't even know what to click, and neither does any of the other users. The drop-off rate for engagement and lead form submission drops off a cliff once you have more than 2 or 3. Because when you make it too hard for people to decide what they want to do, and you can measure all this too. Again, this is all measurable, which is the fun part. A/B test that stuff. Then you can see here's the right number, the right count, the right forms, and you're getting people to interact with you at a much higher rate. How well you're merchandising, of course, that's always a big one. Marketing each vehicle. Compare your inventory accounts to your local competition. Again, shop your own site across all devices. Ask everyone to, mystery shop, all these different kind of things. See how that experience works for others. This is one of my favorite parts when we're trying to decide how we stack up to the competition or to all dealerships out there is the idea of big data, which was such a scary term years ago, where it's like, dealerships can't use big data. I don't know how to use big data. It's really not nearly as intimidating as we might make it out to be. This is the way we look at it. I'm not going to go through every percentage here because I could get really granular and in the weeds, but beware of averages is one thing that I would say, because averages take into consideration some very heavily variant data where what we like to look at is, what is the average dealership doing, but what are the top 20% doing within a large network, a few hundred dealerships and bigger. And a lot of your vendors have a lot of this data that probably sitting on and we're not using. So like if you ask your Auto Trader rep or your Cars.com rep or whoever you're working with for any of your marketing pieces, where do I fit in? Am I the average dealer? Am I in the top 20 for performance for this specific goal that I have set for this specific channel that has a specific purpose? Am I in the bottom 20%? How efficient are you in getting people from your homepage to your SRPs? How efficient are you in getting people to get to your vehicle detail pages, in converting on your site, in your mobile traffic and your organic traffic, your mobile traffic or your desktop traffic, and your organic traffic and your paid traffic? That conversion rate should be the same too. And so when you start understanding where you fit in and build a plan too, the same way we prioritize a lot of things on that traffic side, on this conversion side too, where we say, okay, for these 3 areas on our website, we are incredibly efficient. We're in the top 10%. This is not a major priority for us, but in these other 3 areas in the website, our mobile conversion rate is in the bottom 40%. And so if we can just get that up to even average, that's going to give us 25 more leads just based on percentages. And we know that these expectations are possible because we know what the best dealerships across the country are doing. And are we leveraging that data? Again, sitting on a mountain, like the number of different companies that a dealership works with, not even just marketing, but across the board, all the data that exists, you can start asking these questions. Where do I fit in? How do I compare to the competition in all of these things that are important parts of these specific strategies? And when you start looking at that, stop looking at averages and medians, but really gaining perspective and just how much of a range there is between the best and the worst. And it is tremendous actually out there across all these different areas, where some dealerships are doing it amazingly well and some are not doing it nearly as well. When you start gaining perspective into where you show up for these different things, then you can make major increases and create a much more efficient marketing spend. So again, just another consider this, just like we had before on the conversion side, you've got a site-wide email conversion of 0.8%. Say there's 5,000 people coming to your site. Of course, that's incredibly variable for all different dealerships. That means 40 people submitting leads. Just getting your email form conversion up to 1.6% means you double your leads. Increase of 0.8. So are we considering, however, 0.5%, 1%, 2% increases across all these different aspects of the website, where you have all this data and you can set expectations based on what's actually going on out there across the industry in terms of the performance that you can expect? do we have those expectations, and are we considering how every percentage increase gives us that much greater lift in actual shoppers coming to our site? So we'll leave here in this final thought and final slide here before some Q&A. We're talking about comparing ourselves to competition. So a challenge too is, literally compare yourself to the competition. Are we doing this? How does your inventory stack up? Just inventory, all of your different Core Series vehicles. How does that stack up to your nearest competitors? Are you using new car photos? Are they? Are you using used car photos? Are they? Create a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are one of the lost arts out there in a lot of the marketing plans and the marketing management, but literally every one of your competitors, put them down in the rows and then make columns for these different things and just strike them off and then be looking for this stuff. And when you start building a marketing plan across more than just the SEO and the SEM and other pieces, when you're comparing these types of things to what is the competition doing, then you can start gaining much greater perspective into what's happening out there. Do some price comparisons. The lowest price on a Core Series vehicle for your dealership versus your competitors. Again, you don't want to play the race to the bottom, but how does it look to a consumer for that one car maybe compared to those guys? Discounts and SRPs and incentives in your SRPs. Are you giving information that others are doing? If they're doing it and you're not, how does that compare for a consumer who's on your site and maybe doing that comparison? Visibility on third-party sites. Are you using AutoTrader? Are they using AutoTrader, Cars.com, Car Gurus? I'm not endorsing to use all those at all times. Sometimes it is, as long as you set the ROI expectations and you're hitting it, you should. Sometimes you don't hit ROI with those sites, but a lot of times you do. What's the competition doing? What do they look like? And then, do those searches on Google. Use that iSearchForum.com and see, again, don't just do searches on your regular Google on your site because you're going to pollute the data. Use iSearchForum.com to get that incognito comparison ability. And then how does the competition show up? How do they look? How do your ads compare to theirs? Look at this stuff. And then ask your vendor partners, who I think just as an industry, we're not where we need to be in this area yet. There's very few of us that are looking at these comparisons in this kind of way. It's going to be here in 5 years. Be doing these things sooner and faster. Be doing them now, and you're going to get that jump start because all this data is coming as an industry. And right now you have an opportunity to go out there and start doing these things and get that leg up on your competition and take it to the next level in your marketing. So with that, wanted to thank everybody for sitting in on this one, and looking forward to any Q&A, any questions you guys might have.
Great, everyone. We're now in the Q&A portion of our webinar, so please enter any questions you may have to that questions tab to your lower right. First question, there are so many things to track. What metrics should we be tracking daily or weekly?
Yeah, definitely so many things to track out there. And one of the things that we don't want to do is have paralysis by analysis is one of my favorite things to say on that part. It really, I think it comes down to different channels. So, for your SEO, I think you want to be, on a monthly basis, prioritizing really like your top 20 keywords based on the search volume happening out there. How do you rank and how does the competition rank? And then on your website, a big part of SEO is actually the conversion on the site. So I'd be tracking really on probably a weekly or monthly basis. Monthly is probably safer because you're going to be making different tests, and you don't have to be. In fact, you don't want to be overly reactionary. What's your macro conversion rate? How many phone calls are you getting? What's the rate on that? How many lead forms are you getting? By channel too. So Facebook, you're not going to get that same high conversion rate because it's more of a numbers game where you're trying to get in front of hundreds of thousands or millions of people as opposed to paid search where you're trying to get in front of people who are more individualized, telling you exactly what they want. So what's your conversion rate there, and what's your micro conversion rate? Are people getting from the homepage to the SRPs efficiently? Are people doing the things we want them to in the SRPs and the BDPs to create that engagement? And then again, since every channel has a different purpose, you look at things like Facebook and other channels that are more stimulus related. We want to look at things like frequency and again, since it's a numbers game, how many people are we getting in front of that are the right audience and how are they interacting? And maybe your purpose on Facebook is get people to your website to get them started, and that's click-through rate. But I would limit it to really 4 or 5 primary KPIs to look at on the regular, like on a weekly basis, and then monthly build it out from there. Because once you start seeing some of those primary, key metrics go up or go down, then you can start digging into the why from there. And then there's really millions of different things that you can look at from there, really. But start from the top and set those benchmark expectations based on real expectations that could happen.
What are you suggesting dealers do to fill the gap with Facebook audiences going away?
So Facebook audiences aren't 100% going away. They're changing quite a bit with GDPR, but so there's limitations that are out there now, which are all founded in creating privacy. And really, how I suggest building the right audience for Facebook is first start geographically where you sell in cars, and then do you have buyer personas built out for the types of cars and the types of ads you want? If you're trying to make a push for SUVs, does your audience actually reflect SUVs? There's a lot of information about the type of person that's still available. We're losing some data. I think losing some, financial data on people, and a lot of the vehicle owner kind of data. But your customer database is something that you can still upload firsthand, and there's a lot of opportunity with there for service and getting people built or put back into the life cycle. But I think the biggest opportunity for us maybe as an industry is to begin segmenting the audience, just as granular as you want to get on things like paid search, segmenting the audiences so that your ads are tailored to who that audience is as specifically as it can be. So SUV ads would be built around an SUV audience, minivans built around maybe parents that have children, and tailor the message. It's going to be a different audience for sedan owners. When you start doing that and you do it geographically in the right way, you start seeing a much, much, much more efficient way of stimulating interest in your market, because the ads are that much more personalized to who the audience is. But the Facebook audiences aren't going away. We're losing some of that data. But frankly, if you create these buyer personas to be using the data that exists out there and leveraging customer database information, it's actually more efficient than what you used to be able to get with some of those things.
Do I need Google Analytics if my provider has their own analytics installed?
For this one, I would say definitely yes. And there's a lot of good website companies out there and some good reporting that happens in their back end, but it is, I guess, inherently biased just because it is that back end. Things are not looked at the same. So if you look at, session duration and different metrics that are happening, you're going to see major variances across different providers. And so, Google Analytics is used by millions of companies across the world because it has a level of objectivity, and especially if you have multiple website providers or want to compare results from your current platform to another, it is a much more apples to apples comparison. And I would say definitely use that and set up goals through that. And the level of granularity you can get into within the segmentations that exist within Google is just far superior to the information that's in the back end of the website providers.
Can you elaborate on how SEO can help improve paid search performance?
Yeah. I think SEO and SEM unified, that was a big message that we were talking about a couple of years ago, and it holds very true today. So, part of that SEO strategy, that we'd recommend employing is, again, when you're looking at the searches that are happening in market, you're building content on your website that matches those expectations. Again, when there's heavy search volume going on in the market and there converting well and we're getting them organically and matching that up, make sure that you're leveraging and using those same pages as the landing pages for your SEM strategy too. Because when you do that, it's going to create a better experience on the SEM side with your landing page. You're going to get more conversions, you're going to increase your quality score, and you're going to actually save money. So those two really do work hand in hand. I mean, a lot of companies that do SEM, you don't go on, they won't go on the website and make changes on the website. And I think it's very hard to create a very successful SEM strategy if you don't have the flexibility and ability to go on the website and make changes that are going to increase that conversion. So they really work hand in hand.
Great. Well, thank you so much for attending today's webinar, and thank you to Dave and Reunion Marketing for some great content. To view this webinar on demand and future Digital Dealer webinars, please visit digitaldealer.com/webinars. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, all.